Thank you, Cahirlock. Good afternoon, Minister. Just very briefly, can I preface what I'm going to say by saying that there are many creches today throughout the country who are carrying out exemplar professional work with children in childcare today, and that should be mentioned. But what we all saw last night, I just want to echo what people have said here today. Like what Aon O'Riordan says there, I worked as a secondary school teacher, and if somebody came home and says that a secondary school teacher had tied up a student, or a secondary school teacher had put another student into a room and put a blanket over him, we'd be gobsmacked. We've put up with it long enough in our nursing homes, and it's not acceptable and it's not tolerated now. It was never tolerated in our secondary and primary schools, and it should never be tolerated in our preschools. What I want to ask, Minister, is a couple of questions. Can you give us an assurance that there will be an increase in inspections, and that there will be the introduction of unannounced inspections, and that any staff shortcomings will be addressed? Secondly, Minister, will you withdraw public funding from childcare providers, as other people have also said, if they are found to be in breach of HSE regulations? The reality is public money should be withdrawn from creches who fail the children in their care. Regulations and standards must be enforced if they're to be taken seriously, and the public have a right to have faith in this system. And finally, Minister, this morning on Morning Ireland, you mentioned that inspection reports would be available online. Can you confirm, will it just be new inspection reports, or would it also be inspection reports from the past? In summary, Minister, just to finish up, this has been a watershed moment in how we think of childcare and early years education in Ireland. We need to focus less on the profit of companies, as other people have said, and more on the educational and development needs of our children. Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Can I begin by thanking colleagues from all sides of the House who have come in here today to raise this important topic of the care of our children under 5 years of age and the services that they attend. It is probably the first time we've had such a focused debate on this age group in this House. That speaks for itself. Obviously, I regret what has precipitated this debate, and like all colleagues across the House, I want to agree with what colleagues have to say about the scenes we all saw last night. The images that we saw, they were harrowing, they were distressing, they were shocking, and they were absolutely, and I agree with what has been said by colleagues, as I say, on all sides of the House, absolutely unacceptable. What we saw was poor practice and a dereliction of duty and care, resulting in the mistreatment of young children, is, as I have already said, bordering on abuse. Extremely distressing, haunting to watch. And I concur with the comments that have been made. It's very striking, for example, when our children begin in primary school at 5 years of age, the inspection regimes, the curriculum, the focus, the support for teachers, the support for mentoring, the support for monitoring what's happened. That has not happened in this sector to the degree that we need to focus on. It has happened in other countries, it has not happened here, and that is the task before us. And those are the issues, indeed, that we need to address. I'll try and respond to as many comments as, that have been made as possible. Let me just begin by saying that the Childcare Preschool Services Regulations of 2006 are the basis on which the HSE carries out preschool inspections. And clearly the incidents shown last night that appeared on the programme would appear to constitute serious breaches of those very regulations. We do need stronger and more robust inspections, there's no question of that. We need inspections that take account of quality to a far greater degree than the current inspection regime, and we do need, as a number of deputies have suggested, we do need stronger sanctions. I certainly concur with the points that have been made in relation to that. But certainly what was shown last night, if you take the current regulations, if you look at the Regulation 5, which is about the care and the development of young children, the health, welfare, development, and Regulation 9, that's about managing the behaviour of young children in these centres. Certainly they were not met as intended, and that goes without saying. I do want to inform the House, as you will probably be aware, that the practices witness and the centres that were the subject of the programme are currently the subject of a thorough and comprehensive investigation currently underway by the Gardaí and by the HSE. And all such instances of mistreatment of children in childcare settings should and must be reported to authorities. It doesn't need mandatory or statutory reporting to do that. That is essential and necessary under the current guidelines, but obviously obligatory reporting strengthens that provision. But clearly under the current guidelines, any instances of abuse of children or instances bordering on abuse of children where there are concerns should be reported. It should be noted as well, to make the point, that the children in last night's report appeared to be younger than the preschool cohort, and we don't have in that programme evidence directly of poor practice in relation to that cohort, but clearly last night's report would obviously make us extremely sensitive to examining and continually to investigate what precisely is happening during the course of the ECE scheme. I do want to alert deputies to the fact that Pobble investigates on a yearly basis the ECCE scheme, and we have an annual report since we began that just last year. So we now have a whole cohort of information about compliance across the sector, and there are some statistics that I would like to share with deputies, because the issue of qualifications has been raised quite a lot. Just to make the point that for the first time ever, as I say, last year we collected information in relation to this cohort, and the number of staff, for example, qualified at FETAC level has risen from 70% in 2010 to 2012 to 86.5%. And 86.5% of staff are now qualified up to level 5 in these settings. And that's very important information. And clearly, we have demanded higher standards in relation to training for the leaders in the ECCE programmes, and 98% of those do have level 5 or above. So there is continual improvement, but there is no room for complacency. Clearly the issue of qualifications, and some deputies have raised the question of mandatory qualifications. I do believe that we should increase, and I am examining for the new contracts and the new regulations in September, increasing the level of qualification which ought to be in place for staff who are employed within the sector. So the matters addressed in last night's programme certainly deserve and demand a comprehensive response. And in fact, we should be in here discussing them at greater length on another occasion, so we can comprehensively discuss the whole range of issues that have been raised on this occasion under the topical issues format. Parents need to be reassured that their young children, whether in childcare services, creches, wherever, are protected and cared for. We have to say, and a number of deputies have said, there are many examples of high quality practice in this country. We do not want to panic every parent in the country about the standards in the services which they are attending and which they are being provided for their children. But we do need to be vigilant, and parents themselves are very vigilant. And parents are not powerless in this situation. We do want to encourage parents today, as some deputies have suggested. What do parents do today? They go to their providers, they ask questions if they're concerned, they ask to see inspection reports. Inspection reports are available and will be available. New inspection reports will be available online in a number of weeks. The inspection reports already done this a substantial piece of work in providing those as well. Can I also say that one of the things that needs to be done, which hasn't been done to date, we need to analyse all of the reports. We need to see what are the messages from the inspection reports from around the country. Can I also say that the HSE have informed me that there will be a website available shortly outlining what prosecutions have taken place, so that parents will have access to that information. And I have today spoken with Gordon Jays about bringing the findings together and analysing them by sector, by private sector, not-for-profit sector, community sector, to analyse what we can learn from the inspection reports that have already been done. Deputies would be surprised to hear that, like many issues in relation to children in this country, we did not have this national data. We do not have a national approach to inspections. I've asked Gordon Jays to ensure that we have that national approach. That will ensure that inspection staff can also be redeployed in a flexible manner to deal with some of the gaps there at present, and a number of inspectors are being recruited at present. There are quite a number of other issues that have been raised, which I won't have the opportunity, I understand, Cahill, to respond to right now, but perhaps when I come back after deputies have spoken again.
So,